Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Friday SLO Talk. I am Enrique Jauregui, the SLO coordinator for Fresno City College. As you're coming in, kindly introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us where you're from. How's the weather? So today I am accompanied by Sting College of the California Algonquin Assessment Coordinators Hub, also known as coaches, who will introduce themselves shortly. But some housekeeping items. Please ensure your microphone remains muted unless you're contributing or asking a question. Feel free to utilize the chat feature in Zoom for questions and comments. Shortly, a Padlet link will be shared in the chat, offering another space to share insights. So by Sunday night, you can access the recordings of the session on the coach's website, where links, presentations, and other resources will also be available on the blog. Now I'd like to recognize the coaches who are with us and assisting us with the discussion. Amanda, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Friday SLO Talk. I am Amanda Tainter. I'm the faculty coordinator of instructional design and outcomes at Reedley College, which is a sister school to Enrique's Fresno City College. So welcome, everybody. We're happy to have you. And I don't see any other coaches here quite yet, but if they come, make sure you guys introduce yourselves as well. We'll be facilitating this talk. I think we're ready to jump in, right, Enrique?
Yes, Amanda, would you like to take this away?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're super excited. Today's talk promises a riveting journey from the theoretical foundations of educational advancements to the pragmatic implementations and finally to the cutting-edge software that brings it all to life. In our series of 3 enlightening talks, first, the SLO talk by Leah Yen from University of Oxford will explore the realm of educator insights, building AI resistance in community colleges through sociotechnical understanding. This segment will unmask the myriad facets of AI integration in community colleges, spotlighting both its societal repercussions and the vast opportunities it presents. Next, we'll have Billy Wagner, a trailblazer in community college specializations. He will steer us through the transformative landscapes of direct assessment, competency-based education pilot programs in California. With him, attendees will venture into the intricate phases of its implementation, taking a closer look at what the future holds for competency-based education. And our third talk, and is certainly last but not least, Ian and Cole will present the vanguard in educational platforms, FeedbackFruits. This dynamic duo will acquaint us with a vision of higher education that is not just student-centric, but also skill-focused, ensuring graduates are ready and equipped for the evolving demands of the modern workplace. Together, these talks encapsulate the transition from conceptual understanding to hands-on application, enhanced by technological advancements. Brace yourselves for a thought-provoking dive into the future of education, from theory to practice to the digital tools that make it possible. Let the exploration begin. And with that, Leah, take it away.
Thanks so much. I'm going to go ahead and get my slides up. Can everyone see slides?
Yes.
Great. So it's truly an honor to be here. My name is Leah Yen, and I'm a proud community college alumni. I graduated from El Camino College, transferred to UCLA, and then I'm finishing up my graduate studies at the University of Oxford at their Internet Institute. On the side, I am the co-director of a nonprofit that is dedicated to helping community college students enter high-impact careers. And so this summer, we had the pleasure of bringing 29 students from all over the U.S. to Washington, D.C., where they were able to explore different public service careers within the D.C. ecosystem. But what I wasn't expecting was this to be also an immersive experience in seeing how students were actually responding to ChatGPT and generative AI. It came up in everything from just conversations over breakfast to them showing me that they were thinking about, how do I use AI in dating apps and come up with different pickup lines, and what are the social repercussions of that? And so I think that was my first insight into how deeply entrenched AI was within just the different social lives of students. And that really led me to questioning, how do educators respond to the environment and the different social factors that are shaping the way that students are engaging with this technology, especially when the technology has so many implications for work later on. So today I'm going to be touching on a bit of my master's research. So for the past 6 months, I've been doing a mix of digital ethnography, of online forums, different media trends revolving around conversations about generative AI, particularly ChatGPT, since it was the first one to hit mainstream media. Semi-structured interviews with community college educators who had a major role in shaping discussions and conversations within their districts and community colleges, and then thematic analysis of the major patterns within these discourses. Now, my background is much more in tech than in education, and so a lot of the theory that has informed the way that I approach this comes from tech. But some of the things that I really want to emphasize in this conversation is how much tech needs educators and how much society needs educators to be shaping the conversations about AI. And so a quick overview. There are much better resources out there, including other SLO talks about how to use AI, how to use ChatGPT, and to apply it to teaching and competency-based education. So I'm happy to provide resources there, happy to point people in that direction. But for the purpose of the presentation today, I really wanted to focus on what are the things that are missing in conversations. And so one of the things that stood out to me when I was comparing interview data to kind of thematic analysis of what was going on in resources that were circulating the internet was realizing that the things that educators were concerned about and the things that people were really feeling the pressures of were kind of missing from those conversations. And I think that those are actual issues that matter when it comes to thinking through what are the other factors that shape the ability of students to actually achieve SLOs. And so some of the things I want to emphasize today is thinking through how do we situate students and educators within the sociotechnical landscape. In other words, the social pressures, and then also the technological pressures that are shaping student engagement. And then also how do we use those insights to kind of strengthen pedagogical resilience. So if some of the content from this presentation feels familiar, that's because a lot of the insights come from educators like you. So that's a good thing. You should walk away feeling like I have a major stake in these conversations. And again, I'm going to advocate for, again, educators being the people who should be shaping these conversations. So my goal in this presentation is not to critique or to demean technology or to demean a particular point of view, but to represent the insights that were entrusted to me and to hopefully pass it on as a line of inquiry that you can take back into your unique context. So part one, navigating the sociotechnical landscape, which is constantly evolving. So I should note that again, technology is constantly evolving. I would not be surprised if ChatGPT 15 came out within the next few years. But something to keep in mind is that the socio-technical pressures that shape the way that we engage with AI have existed long before ChatGPT. And so that's why it's important to kind of situate the way that people are responding within that greater context. And so one of the things that I want to do is draw out the main patterns that might be generally relevant and applicable to different contexts. One of the challenges here is that each of you serve in unique community college contexts, and you are the experts at knowing what those contexts mean for the learning processes of your students. And so I tried to pinpoint some of the more generally applicable things to consider when considering the worlds of students. And so hopefully, again, that creates lines of inquiry that can be brought back into considering how do we meet the needs of students. And the major one is the pandemic. And this is important to consider because in a lot of the mainstream resources and conversations about AI, there tends to be a separation between the impacts of AI in education and also the impacts of ed tech and pandemic impacts. And a lot of the impacts that came from educational technology adoption during the pandemic, as well as the social implications of the pandemic, are things that are kind of lingering and creating aftershocks within receptivity towards AI. And so creating that connection, I think, is an underdeveloped part of academic conversations because even the pandemic itself was situated in greater societal implications. And so being able to kind of identify what were some of those aftershocks is helpful for situating why is it difficult and why does it feel overwhelming when we think about AI today. One of the major themes that came up in conversations is this idea of the new normal. One educator was sharing how they just got over introducing the idea of the new normal after the pandemic to other administrators and faculty. So how were they going to try to get people on board for adopting to the new normal after AI? So this constant cycle of adapting to new technological advancements is part of that aftershock. Another thing is the rapid adoption of new technologies and practices. This reflects oftentimes a disconnect between policy and practice. So oftentimes there's rapid adoption that is advocated for, and yet a lot of times established institutions might be resistant to change because they have heavily established practices, or they just simply lack the resources to change. For example, there's an expectation to upskill that's placed on already overworked and underpaid educators. And without resources and without time to adapt to those new changes, that's going to create increased pressures and increased responsibility on educators and also on students who are also facing that overload. Another thing is digital dependency and overload. I never imagined that Zoom fatigue would become a part of everyday conversations, but that just became a common term and psychological condition because of the pandemic. And so it makes sense that digital dependency and overload would also translate to just the ease with which AI, particularly generative AI platforms like ChatGPT, came into the mainstream. The other thing is that with digital dependency and overload, there became a greater erosion of the very few boundaries that were left that kept life offline. And so it makes sense that this would increase fatigue and other societal pressures that were not always brought into kind of the private sphere. Another thing that came up a lot within conversations was the erosion of education quality and academic integrity. So this came up across the board. Now, there are different areas of the spectrum where people landed on how much erosion had actually happened. But there was a deep sense that the issues of academic integrity that came up because of AI didn't just start because AI reached the scene. A lot of this also happened even before the pandemic, as people were switching to different modes of teaching and learning. And beyond that, with the pandemic, there was now a lack of connection with students. And so students having less incentives or less explanations for why learning matters. And so all of these things contribute to an environment where there's just a lot of questions for students who don't know or don't have a standard to what education quality or academic integrity might look like in a context outside of AI or technology. The big major theme was also anxiety, mental health, and well-being. And even if it's not content driven, so students being exposed to constant content through social media networks and mainstream media, there's also a environment in which students are experiencing a lack of relationships that lead to isolation. There's a lot of social science research out there that points to this. And so with that lack of connection and isolation, this also contributes to expanding mental health challenges. And lastly, information overload. We experienced this majorly during the pandemic. It stemmed from before that, but especially in the age of AI, there's trends between the two. So it's not just a matter of too much information, but the cognitive overload of having to distinguish helpful from unhelpful and true from untrue information. And this is relevant as the sphere of AI becomes increasingly inundated with different actors, such as entrepreneurs, different technological developers, peers, politicians who have their own narratives when it comes to AI. And so a lot of research really needs to go into considering how to navigate good educational practices, let alone AI practices, in a culture that's now immersed in fatigue that's very technologically driven. One educator honed in on this and was sharing how they really valued mental health support groups that help people take a break from AI-driven fatigue by helping people just be grounded in reality. And so being able to create support systems that help students navigate this kind of environment is really critical. Next is decoding AI hype and narratives. Educators really pointed to misconceptions about AI and fear about AI as the biggest barrier to really critically engaging with it, whether or not you like it or don't like it. The first point was just trying to get past those misconceptions. And it's oftentimes a bigger matter than just overcoming fear. A lot of it was also sorting through mixed messaging, and this comes from very different actors. educators pointed to the tech industry. And so they were sharing how we should be skeptical of a tech industry when it's promoting a technology that says we have to do away with the pesky task of writing, that's part of the narrative. And instead, as educators, how do you promote the value of writing and the value of learning and seeing its importance rather than overvaluing a shortcut? Or rather, how do you use a tool that emphasizes those important values versus replacing them? Also, another faculty member showed that when they were given a reflective prompt to a student, it was really discouraging to see students who were asked, tell me about a piece of art that you like and why you like it. How discouraging it was to see a ChatGPT response to something like that. And so as educators, they were sharing that it was important to help students realize that their own experiences and cultural contexts are significant and matter. Another thing is, again, the messaging from the media. So hype cycles and information overload. So when I'm talking about hype cycles, I'm meaning kind of the initial fear and kind of anxiety-inducing attention that's given to a new technology. And so all the attention from the media tends to focus on the major headlines that tend to be attention grabbing. And so it makes sense that this would contribute to environments of fear. And so that's going to be difficult to pierce through. Another point that was brought out was even mixed messaging from professors. And so people were pointing out that solely focusing on one aspect of AI conversations can keep people from actually diving into other areas of AI conversations. For example, solely focusing on academic integrity issues can kind of create a culture of policing. And when students feel policed, it can discourage them from actually engaging critically with AI and digital tools in innovative and meaningful ways. Participants noted that students sometimes felt intimidated or ashamed when they were playing with ChatGPT out of fear of being reprimanded and being told, don't use it. And so it's a difficult line to draw, but they were sharing that even just the way that AI is talked about within the classroom can shape how receptive a student is towards it. Now, a major thing that came up both from educators and students is just how much peers shape perception towards AI. Just among the educators I viewed, a majority of them learned about ChatGPT from social networks and exposure from other peers. If that's just from educators, how much more so for students? And so they were sharing about how a lot of students were engaging with these technologies using non-educational forums. Makes sense. Things like Discord and Reddit were used for social interaction and knowledge sharing during the pandemic. And so some educators were pointing out how these forums might have created cultures that have inadvertently or advertently leaded to academic misconduct. For example, students might be more willing to commit offenses and discuss them publicly with one another as they're seeing other students get ahead and feel like that is a part of their norm. At the same time, other participants noted that students may unknowingly commit academic misconduct as a result of these informal channels, such as hearing about a new digital tool, having it advertised to them. They learn how to do something with it, only to later realize the potential it has for academic cheating. So this kind of blurring of lines of the personal world and the professional and educational world, especially when it comes to peer influence, can also shape the way that students are receptive towards AI. And one of the major points of conversation that was very encouraging to me was seeing equity and access emphasized. I'm going to point to this a bit more in the second part of this talk, but some of the key takeaways here came from asking the question, what kind of students will benefit most from AI and what kind of students will face the greatest harm? Now, educators are really nuanced in this conversation. They pointed to socioeconomic differences. For example, a student who is able to afford ChatGPT 4 just by nature of that technology and the affordances that it offers are going to have more benefits. Also, students that have access to more technologies and are more digitally literate are going to know how to engage with prompting a system like ChatGPT in a more engaged way and get more robust output. And so that's going to create lines of division between who benefits most. I think one participant summed it up really well when they said the students that are the most marginalized, for example, possibly English language learners, students from working class backgrounds or first generation are more susceptible to harms, but they also stand to benefit more from using it. So these are students who may not be able to afford after school tutoring or even just the time to access additional resources. And now they have something in their back pocket to be able to help them get along when it comes to their education. English language learners are brought up across the interviews as a category of students who people felt like were the most likely to use ChatGPT for academic misconduct, or accidentally use it for academic misconduct, but also the category of students who would benefit most from the technology, and also the category of students who would be most discriminated against because of AI detection tools. And so they gave anecdotes. For example, one participant noted that a student had submitted a paper that was constantly being flagged by AI detection tools as being AI generated, when they were actually just learning how to use the formulaic essay structures from an introductory English composition course. And they were saying that they had to really lean on the relational knowledge from being their educator and teacher and knowing their actual learning process to be able to distinguish the difference. And that relational knowledge and understanding of student experiences is really important for actually understanding where students are at within their educational journey. Lastly, another point that came up was the distraction of hype. So hype and an overemphasis on certain aspects of AI conversations can, again, detract from what other people called as more interesting conversations about the potential of AI. For example, a district director was really excited about the potential of AI for accessibility. So now, in order to meet different accessibility standards, such as adding captions to videos, there are tools now to help offload that work from educators and now actually make education more accessible to more students. And so there was a desire for more of these kinds of conversations to be emphasized. So part two, across the board, it was encouraging that there was a unified sense among educators to reaffirm the value of learning and quality of education, especially amidst these societal pressures. And this focus was meant to stress like something that would withstand both technical and social development. And one of the leading themes across the interviews was a desire for AI-inspired discourse to be oriented around good pedagogy and good instructional design. So what one of the participants called good pedagogy first. And so descriptions of what good pedagogy varied appropriately as educators considered the unique needs and backgrounds of their students and also the disciplinary expectations for these students. And but still, it was very clear that educators were well equipped to be the ones helping students develop skills that would be resilient in an AI-driven world, because many of the AI resilient skills, which I'll touch on later, were ones that have always been emphasized in teaching, such as critical thinking. And so I'll get to that in a bit. But one participant noted that AI developers could learn a lot from teachers. An AI developer had made a comment online along the lines of how no one could have imagined the power of language to do so many things. And they're saying, well, all you have to do is walk to the MLA convention, which is down the street from where you're situated, because people there have been having critical discussions about AI and language for a really long time. And so different participants were sharing how the innovative, adaptive, and humanizing aspect of teaching meant that educators were well positioned to think innovatively about what it would look like to develop practices to utilize the strengths of AI tools and offset their negative impacts. And this is really key because I think for starting conversations about AI, even when people are split across the spectrum, it's helpful to orient around this emphasis of good pedagogy first. And one of the major parts of good pedagogy that everyone was emphasizing was the need to go back to student-centeredness. And this was emphasized in different ways. Many people cited the importance of paying attention to the interests of students. And this was done through the use of things like forums and panels where students were allowed to speak without being questioned. They wanted students to share openly without the fear of being reprimanded or being policed, so that they could get an accurate picture of why students value these technologies. And so some of the questions that students valued and actually had a lot of input on were the following. How can I benefit from this tool? One student was sharing that she just didn't have time for grammar on top of working for 2 jobs, supporting family, and keeping up with coursework. And so an AI tool that helped her kind of offload that aspect of learning was something that was really beneficial for her. Now, we can debate whether or not that's actually helpful for her in the long run, but it was important to hear that narrative of hearing, well, when I'm evaluating the life responsibilities on my plate, how am I attributing value to the process of learning or this specific aspect of learning? Another question that came up was, how do I learn this tool ethically? A lot of the moderators of the different forums that were conducted were surprised to find that while many students embraced ChatGPT and other people were skeptical, there was an awareness of the different societal implications, such as privacy. How might my data be used by these different entities? Or how might my teachers, how might my job perceive me if I'm using these tools? Another question that came up was, how do I stay competitive in an AI-driven world? So even when I was leading this group in DC, this came up across the sectors, thinking through how is AI going to shape what work looks like for me in the future? And then what does it look like to engage here? At Oxford, a saying that's been going around is that the question is not, will AI replace jobs? The question should be, how will people using AI replace jobs? And so that was kind of the ethos and the questions that would come up was, how do I actually learn skills that make me competitive in an AI-driven workforce? Another thing was just, why does this matter? It's so inundated within the environment of students that it's hard to piece out, like, why does this matter? Why does critically engaging with these technologies matter? And educators found it really helpful to connect it to real world implications and impacts, such as connecting it to the SAG-AFTRA strikes or discussions about workplace development. So helping students see why considering AI and its impact on learning and student development matters within the context of how the real world sees these things. Another important theme that came up was the importance of allowing students and educators who understand students to provide feedback on AI tool and tool design. Several educators were already involved in developing AI tools for educational contexts and were advocating for them. Educators best know what are the most valuable parts of the learning process that actually get students towards learning outcomes. And so one person asked, do you want students to spend time thinking about the topic, or do you just want the paper? And so how do you develop a technology that helps people and students actually go through the process of learning so that the paper reflects the process of learning? And so participants were involved with creating apps that actually scaffold in the importance of that learning process. Another person pointed out that a lot of these technologies are commercially shackled, meaning that they have corporate interests embedded into them. And so creating learning systems that are able to give students access to high quality resources and technologies is really important without having to engage with these corporate interests. Another thing is that several educators reference student learning outcomes as a critical pivot point away from grade-driven learning that oftentimes AI can get students towards. But they always contextualize student learning outcomes within the valuing of student-centeredness. For example, educators took note of how focusing on skills and competencies that students should take away from an interaction or assignment was a positive way of providing a fresh lens on reevaluating different pedagogical approaches. For example, they're saying, someone was asking, if a student can use ChatGPT to get through an assignment, maybe I should be questioning if there's an issue with the assignment and reevaluating what that can look like in a world where ChatGPT exists. A lot of educators also saw a key connection between SLOs and what I call AI resilience, and that SLOs should be established considering what are the skills that would remain helpful and relevant for students in an increasingly AI-driven world. Someone was mentioning that it is actually a gift that students have so many resources available to them, and they shouldn't be disincentivized from being excited about how to access this boundless ocean of opportunity. There just has to be a way of being able to demonstrate that knowledge was actually gained in using them. And so this is where SLOs come in. There were multiple suggestions too about learning packs. So actually engaging with students with creating agreements where students have the ability to identify core values for learning and consider how those values would be protected and upheld in the learning process. So last major points, kind of condensing all the major things that educators felt like students should take away. And this is what I would call AI resilient skills, intelligences, and literacies. Chris Deed from the Harvard Graduate School of Education has talked a lot about what he calls intelligence augmentation, or how to upskill humans to complement AI He and educators I interviewed emphasized the importance of understanding what AI can actually do and what it's good at, as well as its limits. And that's where human judgment comes in. Dean notes that AI is strong at things like calculation, computation, and prediction, what he calls reckoning skills, while human judgment skills, such as decision-making, deliberation, ethics, practical knowing, and some of the other skills that I'm about to go into, are actually how humans contribute to the value of AI. And so rather than trying to resist or compete against AI, it's important to develop the soft skills that AI lacks. And so here are just some of the key ones that came up in the research. One is critical thinking. So movement away from memorizing and parroting to critically engaging. The majority of educators cited how training in media and digital literacy was key for their own process of learning how to critically engage with AI, as it allowed them to look under the hood and consider the different social influences that were not only impacting the technology, but their own thinking processes. And so these are skills that educators already have. Again, you have the toolbox. This is just another context for applying them. Those more engaged with AI also noted that AI technologies actually provided a unique opportunity for students to both develop critical thinking skills and apply them to engagement with AI. For example, they could grade AI output by assessing plausibility, accuracy, and fit. Students tended to be more rigorous in their critiques because they knew that they were just critiquing AI and not critiquing a person. And so they were sharing that this was a unique opportunity to teach students how to give feedback, but then also assess the accuracy of AI output. Another really important thing to consider is sociotechnical understanding. And I didn't have to do much to prompt educators here because they already realized that AI is both designed and limited, as well as socially constructed, and has the potential to reinforce social patterns and biases. And this understanding was key for helping students recognize their value, what they brought to the table that AI could not, such as understanding diverse human perspectives often represented in technology and thus the technologies. This leads you to the next point, intersectional analysis, a point that educators felt both highly passionate about, and yet they felt was the most lacking due to a lack of diverse perspectives shaping technological development was the discourse, as well as the discourse around AI, was the lack of diversity. And so many of them noted that the loudest voices about AI tended to be the people who comment on AI and technology historically, which in their words seemed to be straight white males leading the tech industry. And when I asked them who they thought should be shaping AI and AI debates, they had a lot of ideas. One was actually emphasizing student voices, especially students from different disciplines, skill sets, and cultural backgrounds. Two was people experiencing the greatest harms from AI. And so things like content moderators who are looking at the AI output and discerning it. They also emphasize people like Kathy O'Neill, Rua Benjamin, Sophia Noble, Timnit Gebru, who are known for their work in considering tech through a critical and intersectional lens. And even AI educators who are more skeptical about AI emphasize the importance of understanding both sides of the debate, the perspectives of AI-resistant people, people from the tech industry, people from diverse perspectives, because all of that is important for situating this technology within its social pressures. Another thing is the importance of human judgment. And so Christy gives the example of how with healthcare analytics, we have access to so much data that helps people make accurate diagnoses, but the ability to have a bedside manner in communicating that information to someone, being able to read cultural differences, different ways of grieving is a totally different skill set than what AI can provide. And so being able to help students develop those soft skills is important. And also collaboration. The need for community, connection, and collaboration is, I think, more pressing more than ever. And so in spite of all the fatigue that comes from technological development, being able to collaborate actually distributes the burden of the things that create fatigue. And so these educators were sharing how they really leaned on peers and encouraged students to learn how to have the collaborative skill sets that are able to help them kind of survive, but then also compete in an AI-driven world. So in conclusion, in reflecting on the journey of AI in education from initial hype and fatigue to what it looks like to be grounded in reality, also good pedagogy and student-centeredness to AI resilience, and SLOs and competency-based education as a potential compass for really directing those efforts. It's really important to know that AI tools can't replace well thought out instruction or timeless skills that have always been central to education. In navigating the AI enhanced landscape, educators are staunch advocates for student-centric approaches. And that's what's going to allow students to engage deeply, not just with technology, but with the ethical dilemmas, the social environments that are shaping it. And the goal is still clear: to prepare students to be AI resilient. It's also about bringing out their humanity and the soft skills that AI just can't replicate. And so in the future, it should be a future that's directed where AI is a complementary tool, but not the end goal. And I really do believe that educators are best positioned to lead that conversation.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you so much. Now, you mentioned, what caught my attention, student center, right? At the end of the day, we need to be focused on student center, and especially with the SLOs. And I think Amanda also wrote something on the chat that caught my attention. So what was your key point of ways for student center and focusing on student learning outcomes?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
What was your main takeaway point from this research in dealing with student center and learning outcomes?
Yeah. So with student-centeredness, I appreciated that a lot of educators actually talked to students about understanding how they were engaging with AI and technology, because I think the initial fear and hype was trying to figure out, how do we moderate the way that students are engaging with technology versus understanding, like, what are the motivations, how are they actually applying it, and how might that be helpful for their goals and their future careers in the long run. And so I appreciated just the idea of student-centeredness, also including student voices, even as policies are being created, as the steps towards outcomes are scaffolded, just actually integrating student voices within that direction.
Thank you. Amanda, would you like to, thank you so much, Leah. Once again, thank you for your presentation. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Amanda, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, echo Enrique's. Thank you, Leah, for your time. It's nice to get sometimes that outside educator viewpoint, so we appreciate you presenting your research. We are very excited to welcome Billy Wagner, a community college specialist who will provide a concise update on direct assessment, competency-based education pilot programs at the California community colleges. He will also give attendees a comprehensive overview of the different phases of direct assessment, competency-based education implementation. Through this presentation, Billy offers an exciting opportunity to dive deep into the forefront of competency-based education in California. And I am really excited about this because I know many of you are probably coming from campus where CBE is swirling around there. So it's great to have an expert here to maybe set some of the records straight and get some clear information. So Billy, take it away. Thank you for being here. Oh, we lost your sound, Billy. This always happens. You were perfect before, but we cannot hear you right now.
Maybe it's because I was sharing.
There you go. Now I hear you.
And you can see my screen, okay?
We can. You are good to go.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Billy Wagner, and I am, as mentioned, a specialist from the California Community Colleges. I'm just kind of trying to move some stuff around so it's not blocking my view. Okay. And I will be sharing with you all observations of the implementation process of the 8 pilot colleges working towards offering direct assessment, competency-based education, associate degrees. As we go through the presentation, you may notice a few themes in what I emphasize, and I thought it'd be wise to kind of call them out from the onset. So first, you may notice that I say direct assessment, competency-based education every time, right? Or at least I will try to. And I'm doing this intentionally because the various forms of competency-based education are relatively new to our system, and it is important to understand that the elements I will be going over all fall under direct assessment, competency-based education. Now, what is competency-based education and what is direct assessment? So direct assessment of student learning means a measure of a student's knowledge, skills, and abilities designed to provide evidence of the student's proficiency in the relevant subject area. And I will be diving a little bit deeper into this definition later, but I did want to start it off with you have an understanding of why I'm bringing it up and why I'm emphasizing direct assessment. Secondly, all the colleges participating in the pilot have unique triumphs and barriers. All 8 of them have put in tremendous work, yet are going to be in different places. They're going to be at different phases of the implementation, given their unique local structures. Additionally, the phases may not be completely sequential for the colleges that are involved, right? Some folks are going to be doing one thing before another, and that's perfectly okay. Lastly, we just really, at the Chancellor's Office, wanted to extend our gratitude to these 8 colleges as they are making not only progress towards full implementation, but are allowing the Chancellor's Office to really dig deep into their development for the betterment of the system. This work isn't easy. It's pretty hard stuff. It requires folks to be agile and engaged to levels they may not have realized were going to be required of them. This work takes creativity, knowledge, campus-wide buy-in, and a great deal of support. Additionally, for the pilot colleges, there's doing all of that with the Chancellor's Office, myself mainly included, peering over their shoulder with the intent grounded in the equity of the work, but it still requires a great deal of vulnerability from them. Lastly, unfortunately, I did not have too much time to put this presentation together, so I'm not going to be able to showcase images of those, those different innovators doing this work. All the images you will see are open domain or from a repository featuring our campuses. But in the future iterations of these types of presentations, we do hope to use images of those doing this work, of course, with their permission. So for today's agenda, we'll be starting off with what is direct assessment and how it connects to Vision 2030. We'll take a look at which colleges are in the collaborative, what programs they are developing, and roughly where they are in the development of these programs. Then we'll go to the various implementation phases in an expected sequential order. As I said before, many of the colleges are trying to follow the sequence, but they do sometimes accomplish one thing before the next. But the expected sequence is to establish the local infrastructure, select the program, design the program, create professional development, receive approvals and accreditation from various institutions as well as their own, to build the operational model, and to finally, of course, launch the program. So many adults need to be able to pursue their education in times that best suit their life obligations through mediums that they have access to with flexible instructional models and equitable financial assistance support structures in place, so that they can enroll with the confidence that they will have the support and access they need to succeed. Additionally, many adult students want to enroll in a program of study that respects the non-accredited learning they are bringing to the table so that they can advance quicker through their programs of study should they display sufficient mastery of the program areas. Direct assessment competency-based education is that adaptable and flexible instructional model which allows for change of pace financial assistance support structures, valuing skills and education students bring to the table, and understanding that commitments to family and work impact a student's capacity. As we all know, life happens. Due to these equitable and flexible components, students that enroll in direct assessment CBE programs will be able to accelerate their learning at advantageous times and can decelerate their learning at impacted times without too much of a penalty. They will be able to leverage their prior learning while continuing their learning asynchronously at times that fit their schedules, at times that fit their life commitments, so that they can seamlessly complete their educational goals and so that barriers get broken down. Ultimately, direct assessment CBE is an instructional program that, in lieu of credit hours or clock hours as a measure of students' learning, utilizes direct assessment of students' learning or recognizes the direct assessment of student learning by other people. Direct assessment CBE is designed to measure students' progress towards a credential in terms of learning attained rather than time completed. And I guess it's probably pretty important to remember when speaking about direct assessment CBE, time is the variable and learning is the constant. Now, how does this tie into Vision 2030? In my opinion, perfectly. Vision 2030 is equity. equity in success, equity in access, and equity in support. Besides what we have already covered about direct assessment, CBE, and the programs being developed by the pilot colleges, these programs are also end-to-end associate degrees, right? It's all incorporated within the structure of the program itself. No needing to off-track or offload to any other courses or efforts from any other part of the college, quite frankly. And what this does is it reduces the number of units students take to only the ones that are required. In most cases, going to be 60 units that are required, which really saves students time and financial eligibility. Now, I am someone that comes from a very strong financial aid background. It's what I worked in before coming to the chancellor's office. And it's what I worked for the first year I was at the chancellor's office. And I can explain this deeper, but it does get a bit complicated at times. But it also streamlines the pathways and removes those bottleneck courses, right? So in this case, it would be bottleneck curriculum because there aren't any courses in competency-based education, or in this case, direct assessment competency-based education. And then in some cases, it can transfer to four-year bachelor degree granting institutions. We do have a few of the pilot colleges that are developing their competency-based educations, their direct assessment competency-based education programs to transfer. Well, as I said before, we have the 8 pilot colleges, and you can see them on this map right here. They're pretty much spread out throughout the state, but we have 2 implementing early childhood education and development programs, and that's Shasta and Merced colleges, which if you're like me and you have a toddler, you'll know there's certainly a need. You have 1 implementing kinesiology and wellness, and that is at Mount San Antonio College. We have 1 implementing technology and logistics at East Los Angeles College. We have 1 implementing a culinary arts program at Bakersfield College, 2 implementing business administration programs in Madera and Coastline colleges, and then finally 1 implementing auto tech at Southwestern College. The colleges working to implement these programs span much of the state, as you can see, but they include rural schools and city schools. They include large colleges like the East Los Angeles College and small colleges like Madera, colleges in multi-college districts and colleges in single college districts. Programs that are structured around existing standards like auto tech, and programs structured around new standards, particularly the business administration ones. And then programs comprised of as few as 18, 19, 20 competencies, and others comprised of nearly 500 competencies. The point being, this pilot effort is a collaborative effort from colleges of very different landscapes and goals that they are working together in alignment with the chancellor's office so that they can offer these equitably provided programs to their students. And so we as a system can learn from them and what it takes to offer direct assessment competency-based education. So these are the phases of the work. And starting in late 2021, all 8 pilot colleges were selected through an RFA or request for application process. And since then, they have all built their local infrastructures and selected their programs. All 8 of the colleges have moved forward into the designing their programs phase, and most of them have obtained a regional accreditation from ACCJC. And a few of them are actually on the brink of submitting for approval for the ability to award Title IV financial aid. However, I do want to take a moment and acknowledge that every college has met barriers to moving through this process. For instance, some of the smaller colleges have capacity restraints, given how faculty drives much of this work, but some disciplines don't have much faculty overlap. This can be a little bit of a barrier. On the flip side, some of the larger colleges have many competing priorities, something not new to our system, but it can be exacerbated as the pool of initiatives kind of grow wider. Other colleges experience significant turnover of their program leads or their drivers of the programs. And these barriers have required creative approaches in reestablishing their local infrastructures. They can also really drive the considerations of pivoting maybe to a different program type that may be better suited for this pilot. And these barriers have required large transfers of knowledge to new team members, which takes some time with something so novel. And we will touch on each one of these phases, but before we dive in, it is important to note that although these phases are designed in sequence, their practical application is varied from college to college. So direct assessment CBE programs require commitment from the entire campus. Faculty, administrators, and student support services are all touched at various levels, and the way direct assessment CBE operates may require unique and varied compositions of these folks in order to accomplish milestones. So prior to joining the pilot, the selected colleges had to demonstrate somewhat of a holistic commitment at the college by engaging with the various stakeholders and obtaining written assurances from these professionals. Even so, direct assessment CBE was and is new, and college professionals had to dedicate themselves to this work with large unknowns to come. This is especially the case for the program leads. These are the folks that were tasked by the colleges to really drive this work forward at each one of their colleges. And as our Executive Vice Chancellor, Dr. Aisha Lowe, likes to say, this is a grand experiment, and the Chancellor's Office is grateful for so many innovative leaders taking on this challenge. But after demonstrating campus-wide commitments and being selected to partake in the pilot, the program leads at each college had to identify internal stakeholders. As you can imagine, one of the first steps in designing a direct assessment CBE program is to map out who will likely need to be engaged in the various stages to ensure program leads have the right level of input and involvement from key stakeholders within their college. To effectively accomplish this, many program leads leaned into recent programs and initiatives developed and launched within their respective colleges. And they kind of identified folks included in those processes. Additionally, since each one of the pilot direct assessment CBE programs are fully fledged degrees, it was important for the program leads to bring in various general education or GE faculty to the table. Of course, identifying the right personnel is one thing, bringing them to the implementation team was another. These program leads had to work with various stakeholders and determine how much capacity some had, how much release time could be afforded, and who were the best suited to drive this work given their areas of expertise or strength. And this is really like a paradigm shift for a lot of these colleges. So it can be a little bit of a difficulty to figure these things out and navigate them. And then lastly, those chosen and accepting of the work that was to come had to be onboarded. And this included walking them through a host of different presentations regarding the fundamentals of direct assessment CBE and meetings with the different subject matter experts and their areas of focus to bring light elements that they would likely be tasked with. As you can imagine, this was quite difficult for the colleges that had a lot of turnover because they were constantly trying to catch someone up. And when you have such big teams and you have that turnover, it can be very difficult to navigate. And so once again, we just want to express our appreciation to these colleges as they navigate these barriers and the great jobs they're doing on really staying on top of it. It's really something to see. So after establishing that local infrastructure, the teams had to identify which programs of study made the most sense to offer through their direct assessment modalities of instruction. So first, the colleges obtained and assessed labor market information, or LMI. I would imagine for those familiar with the process of acquiring and assessing LMI in our system, this should be rather familiar. Typically, certain trends arise or ideas are expressed throughout the community, and then identification of these trends and sentiments may start off organically, such as feedback from students or maybe a local news broadcast or something like that. But they are typically strengthened through formal processes, such as collecting high-level survey data and advisory board sharing insight into what they believe needs to be kind of captured within their community. What kind of programs make the most sense for the community? And typically, this starter information transitions into a specific program-based research request to the local centers of excellence, or COEs, not to be confused with campus offices of education, which was my confusion initially. But these COEs may provide a variety of information, including jobs that the program of choice is suited to satisfy, the count and demand of those jobs, as well as specific postings displaying salaries that provide at least a living wage, and of course the educational requirements. Most importantly, COEs tend to have recommendations as to the viability of such a program to be offered in the region in which it's being applied for. Additionally, other forms of evidence may be brought to the table to determine the program is a good fit for the college, such as an industry or government job report, or in some cases, like letters of recommendation from local employers or other interested folks. Assuming the research validates the need for the program, colleges should still identify if there is student interest as well, because we know it's about the students. And this is typically done through a more specific survey of the student population. Secondly, after determining if there is a need for a specific type of program, the colleges needed to ensure a shared vision for the program and that it would be offered in alignment with equity goals the colleges have identified. Excuse me. Now, as I said earlier, direct assessment, competency-based education is really equitable. And when it's really designed student first in the mindset, it is grounded in that equity. But it can be made even further equitable by incorporating different elements that align with the program of study or the population the program intends to educate. So after selecting the program, the colleges moved into the designing phase. And this phase is mixed with steep learning curves, with the help from the chancellor's office and jobs from the future. All the colleges have been engaging with many subject matter experts, including folks working at colleges that offer direct assessment competency-based education, or used to. That's including like UMass Global, Southern New Hampshire. There's a few other ones in there. And then folks from CBE consultancy groups like the Competency-Based Education Network, or CBEN, and then the Volta Learning Group. Additionally, the colleges have leveraged each other's learning by engaging with each other through mediums largely driven by, once again, Jobs for the Future or JFF. And I just kind of want to give them a shout out because they've been really adaptable throughout this process, and it's very appreciated. But that learning includes learning labs where the colleges receive presentations regarding certain subject matter and opportunities to debrief, work groups where the colleges could address common hurdles together, message boards where the collaborative could pose questions and respond to questions. The collaborative has really leaned on one each other and in the variety of ways to order to tackle some of these barriers that have been surfacing and communicate as the chancellor's office is kind of taking a look over at trying to assess their needs and wants. Now, personally, it is reassuring to interact with these innovators on a daily basis as they are so invested and motivated. Seeing this work kind of comes through makes me feel invested, and it really helps me stay motivated as well. And I know I've said it before, but I am super appreciative of this collaborative and their efforts because it is something. However, for the actual designing of the programs, the colleges have to document the method they are using to develop competencies. And for many career and technical education competencies, this may be as easy as identifying the industry standards, which are already captured in competency form. This approach is also hugely advantageous because when a student completes the program, the employer will be able to identify the learning the student mastered aligns perfectly with their expectations of an employee working in the given field. However, other program elements may have been developed by identifying the most relevant industry standard, and in some cases, combining them for more holistic coverage, reworking them for relevancy, and structuring them for continuity within the program. And as I mentioned earlier, these are all end-to-end associate degree programs. That means they must include general education as well. Building general education to competency-based education is a task. And to direct assessment competency-based education, sorry, I want to catch myself there, is a task, no doubt. And colleges are tackling the challenges differently. Some colleges are developing universal GE competencies, separately from their major specific competencies and other curricular activities. And others are embedding the GE competencies directly into those major specific competencies. There are major advantages and disadvantages to each method, but the constants that both approaches require is a great deal of faculty buy-in, commitment, and time. Now, program description. This is more than what is captured in the catalog and carries a lot more weight towards program approval for both apportionment and Title IV financial aid, which carries over to state aid as well. That's actually more my background was at the California Student Aid Commission. And I'm telling you, a lot of the stuff that's captured there is directly based off of a lot of the federal regulations, not regs. So the program description includes competency crosswalks, seat time courses, and as I tried to cleverly convey that in the image in front of you, for many colleges, it's meant reviewing their traditional or seat time offered programs of the same discipline or course of study and walking them directly over to competencies. And for others, this meant creating competencies that crosswalk to various courses or vice versa in some cases. So for the academic calendar policy, the colleges had to determine whether direct assessment competency-based education programs follow the traditional term structure, or if they wanted to engage in rolling terms or non-standard terms, non-terms, or term structures, I guess, that would best align with subscription-based financial aid, which we'll touch on a little bit later. The colleges must develop learning assessments, of course. And as this is once again direct assessment of students' mastery of a competency, it's really important that this gets a fair amount of focus. Now, a staple of direct assessment competency-based education is that the assessment does not need to be an exam, but instead can be a demonstration or a project or another form of work demonstrating the mastery of the competence. The collection needed to develop a redirection policy in case direct assessment competency-based education turns out to be the wrong fit for a student is something that is required so that they can go to a more traditional approach if it's just not a right fit for them to continue with this methodology. And of course, financial aid policies that fit their term structure and manner of awarding financial aid that best meets the needs of the students. The versions of financial aid that can be offered with direct assessment competency-based education is subscription-based financial aid, which can most easily be explained as the student's ability to enroll half-time or full-time in the program and learn as much as they want without additional payment. I guess the way to think about this is like Netflix. But after you're done binging, you have a new skill or ability of, say, culinary arts in place of maybe judgments placed on Keith from the Great British Bake Off, who just cannot seem to get his designs together, which really isn't fair to him. He's an amateur baker, but you know, he was my guy, so I was kind of hoping. I don't want to ruin the show for you, so I'll leave it there. All right. So designing the program continued. So faculty and staff in a traditional or seat time course, a single faculty member kind of wears that hat and instructs the class. And in this model, a great deal of the focus is placed on coverage of contextualized information, and it works. However, in direct assessment competency-based education, faculty members may not only provide instruction, but they may serve in a specific capacity. They may serve as the subject matter experts designing the programs. They may be the evaluators of the student assessments, confirming mastery of competencies or providing instruction and guidance on how to reach the level of mastery. They may be coaches, monitoring student progress and engaging with the students to ensure the students are making progress. And since direct assessment competency-based education is currently classified under distance education by the Department of Education, there must be a regular and substantive faculty-student interaction. Over time, as adjustments are made, it is expected that by structuring a faculty model in a similar manner, costs will actually decrease and scaling opportunities will increase. So far, the colleges are exploring the various staff and faculty models and are not quite to a position of sharing out that information. And of course, I will respect that. So moving on. As you may be able to imagine, recruitment of staff and faculty may be challenging, which is why it is so important for the college leads to generate institutional support prior to dispatching on this journey. So far, and it is my observation at least, that there is nothing too unique about recruiting staff. It does take a lot of elbow grease though. Leads must be on top of case making and coordinating and onboarding and delegating efforts and a whole list of duties, really. And even if an institution has holistic support, direct assessment competency-based education is a bit of a paradigm shift, as I mentioned before. And until a college has a culture established with this learning modality, it is easy for stakeholders to lose sight of this effort. And just once again, I wanted to acknowledge all the college folks that have worked on the past and currently on this project. You know, we really do appreciate you, and we recognize there's a lot of work, and we just want to make sure that you're acknowledged for that. Now, I cannot say I have observed too much in the way of student support services just yet, but since these programs will be a type of distance ed or hybrid education, student support services will need to be similar to other distance or hybrid programs. This likely and predominantly means transitioning students to support services online. So now we're moving on to creating professional development, which we are in quite an early phase right now. So the collaborative colleges have actually just begun engaging with trainings established through our partners with the California Virtual Campus, or CVC. I see Bob Nash is in the meeting right now. Shout out to you, Bob. He's a consultant with CVC. And right now, the collaborative is attending a 6-session webinar series being hosted by Instructure in tandem with CVC, which is the organization that provides the chosen learning management system for the pilot, which is Canvas. And the 6 professional development sessions or webinars include first, designing and defining competencies, which was last week. Actually, right after this meeting, and if you would like to attend, I'm sure Bob would share the link, is aligning competencies with assessments, and that's at 12 p.m. So right after this one. The third one, and this is going to be for the next week, is designing CBE programs and modules. The fourth one being assessment, faculty feedback, data analytics, and peer review best practices. The fifth one is program and pathways, leveraging additional Instructure tools for CBE. And the last one in the series is open Q&A with Instructure, CBE experts, and product team. So these webinars will be recorded and will be made usable by the system in the future. Additionally, we do have the second in the series, as I mentioned, starting soon. So I can put that in the chat, or Bob, if you have it kind of handy and put it in the chat, that works too. And once again, after this webinar. But additionally, it is likely that CVC will be providing other Canvas-related professional development as well. And we'll be working with other possible tech providers on solutions to things like subscription-based financial aid, how we're going to generate dual transcripts, and then other tech-related items that are sure to surface. And as for curriculum development, the colleges have been working with CBIN and are being provided direct coaching. And this is extremely valuable for them. You know, we're in the 3rd year of this pilot, and we are excited to see what the colleges will be building into Canvas. But once again, it is a little bit early in the process, but we do expect for that to kind of come through pretty soon, and to be able to capture the professional development pieces that come along with it. However, I will note that through efforts coordinated by the Foundation Success Center, in coordination with us at the Chancellor's Office and Jobs for the Future and RAND and CVC and the Volta Learning Group. I mean, there's a lot of people in play here. And for those who don't know RAND is a research group. I don't think I mentioned them previously. And then, of course, the colleges. We're developing a manual. And this manual is to capture the in-depth learnings made through this collaborative effort. And the intent is to make them available to the rest of the system after the pilot closes in a few years, so that a lot of the pitfalls and barriers that we're going into won't be things that other colleges necessarily have to experience. So they can hopefully learn from us due to this manual that's being captured. Okay, so I have a few slides left, and I'm kind of running a little bit low on time, so I'm probably going to move a little bit faster through these. So receiving approvals and accreditation, we are going to take a real brief look into this. So for the local approved structure, that will pretty much operate the same way as it would for any other program. You know, all colleges have their local approval structures, and so far, everything's been kind of flowing through them as they would for any other program that the college has, whether it be a new program that's offered for a associate's degree, or even a bachelor's degree program or something like that has to go through the same approval structures. Now, for the ACC-JC and the Department of Education approval processes, the pilot colleges were coached by those subject matter experts mentioned earlier on how to best complete the applications. And a lot of what was developed through the design, the program phase, is captured in these applications. So that's why they were designed intentionally that way. And so far, there's 7 colleges that have obtained ACC-JC approval, and a few are kind of knocking on that door to submit to the Department of Education so that they can award Title IV financial aid. And then the last piece being the Chancellor's Office approval process. That's currently being developed, so stay tuned on that one for future updates. Now, for building the operational model, we're not quite to the point of formally building an operational model just yet, but some folks are getting pretty close. And the elements of the operational model, as you can see on the screen, are the tech vendor agreements, documentation on tech changes, documentation of academic calendar changes, examples of dual transcripts and new systems, student tech support plans, and updates to business or sustainability plans. I do imagine that a lot of these colleges will dedicate time to building their operational model while going through, wait for it, 6 to 9 month Department of Education iterative approval process once they submit. And I also know some colleges have made headway in these areas with certain tech plans, but it still is early. And then finally, no college is really near launching their program just yet, but this is obviously the final part of the implementation effort. But the elements included here would include outreach and marketing materials, development, documentation of the transfer agreements, pre-enrollment surveys, and student orientation plans. So with that, if you have any questions, you can always email me. My name is Billy Wagner, but my first name is actually Michael. So mwagner@4cso.edu is how you can get in touch with me.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you so much. I know we're running out of most of the time, but I'll make a quick question. Just real quick and briefly, Billy, how do you deal with dual transcripts? How is that going to happen?
Oh, so we're really early on in exploring that. That's actually a topic that we're working with Bob and his team on at CVC. Right now, we're in the phase of identifying what possible dual transcript solutions exist out there, and what we may be able to kind of leverage in a synergetic way. So for example, Cradle to Career is looking into this as well. Credit for Prior Learning would like to have a place into this. So we would like to kind of coordinate with those groups in particular to make sure that we're kind of tackling this task together so we can be synergetic about it once again, but also allow for these transcripts to be developed so that there's the industry-based ones where they can go and hand it over to an industry professional and go like, yep, you're ready for this 100%. Or if they're transferring to a degree granting, bachelor degree granting institution, they're able to provide a more traditional transcript, which is a little bit more easily consumed by those folks.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. We thank you. Amanda, you're up next.
Be helpful if I unmuted. So we are on our final, and again, not least appreciated presenter for the day. Please extend a warm welcome to our esteemed presenters, Ian and Cole. Today, they will introduce us to the innovative concept and platform called FeedbackFruits. As advocates for the transformative power of competency-based education, FeedbackFruits envisions a future where higher education is tailored to empower students, allowing them to trace their skill development and showcase their competencies to potential employers upon precision. Throughout this talk, Ian and Cole will navigate us through the unique offerings of FeedbackFruits, including learning journeys, institutional competency rubrics, and student portfolios. Discover how FeedbackFruits can equip your institution with the necessary tools to embark on the journey of competency-based education. So this is the perfect follow-up to Billy's talk. So take it away.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. I mean, a lot of presentations that we have with faculty were followed by something completely different. But it's so beautiful to be warmed, kind of into this environment. We're speaking about similar things. We're really touched by good pedagogy first from Layla, and obviously SLOs and student-centric pedagogies and those different aspects. Our company mantra is put pedagogy before technology, not the reverse. So I think there's a lot of shared ambition in that regards. And then Billy, I think your values as far as bringing, what I call a CBE for all with all those different institutions, different departments, but also making sure is something that we share as well. I feel that just as education should be all, skills and competency should be learned by all as well. So really, really nice to kind of be on the same page, which is beautiful. So my name's Ian. I'm one of the executives at FeedbackFruits, and our CBE wizard or guru is Cole. Do you want to say hello, Cole?
Hey everybody, nice to meet you. I wouldn't say I'd call myself a CBE wizard yet, but learning a lot by joining these sessions on Friday. So you see we're based out of Amsterdam in the Netherlands, so it is a little bit late here. You see it's dark outside, but we are, me and Ian been drinking coffees all day trying to get excited and stay ready for this one. Most recently, I've been working with FeedbackFruits. Before that was with Instructure and EasySoft, and did some research during my bachelor's and master's on higher ed and the adoption of collaborative learning tools and best practices when it comes to that. And then the way we got here today is that we've been working with Santa Ana College on their rollout of these CBE programs that you just saw from Billy. So that's a little bit about me and what we're doing here today.
Perfect. So the first slide we had is basically why the heck are we here? And everyone has seen something about traditional education versus 21st education. And really like the epitome and genesis of this whole understanding of CBE in my regards is really a shift from the whole proof of knowledge to proof of skills. And I wrote a sonnet. I wrote this like educational, kind of directional piece to kind of describe this. But then I found one that somebody else wrote that was better. So Dr. Schuworth, who's a professor from Flinders University, he states this, and he stated this in a conference that I was at not too long ago. Learning is a complex, intricate, interactive process, but you can't apply a reductionist approach. We usually say in Dutch, where we're from, if you disassemble a bike, then you reassemble it, you will have a bike. But if you dissect a frog and then glue it back together, it is not a frog anymore. So it is certainly the interaction and the skill that counts amongst that particular assessment. So if we're walking through in this type of evolution, we can just say it's from knowledge to skill, but it's also the process, it's the social learning, it's the aspect of ensuring that that competency and skill has been joined together with the learning experience. So we're really excited to be here. I think the other area is, what are the challenges, Cole? What are we dealing with? Because this isn't an easy thing to do, as Billy stated earlier.
Yeah, I think it was really good to have and see what the status of the current project at CCC has been so far, and to hear about how, like Billy said, every institution is different and they're each facing their own challenges as they look to roll out CBE. So whether if it's defining the competencies or just the amount of alignment and work that's involved in making this transition to have a fully CBE program, and then having the ways to track the data and aggregate it and have the tools to deliver this quality types of assessment and then assess students in this way based on their competencies. And that is really what we at FeedbackFruits have made this mission to support. This has been a project that we've been working on, kind of co-developing with other thought-leading institutions in Europe and Australia and other places where CBE has, already taken this step into the mainstream of the way that education is delivered. And it's brought us to how we want to support competency-based education, because what our vision is that we want to provide a platform that allows students to demonstrate and visualize their competencies, but most importantly, putting them at the center of this process, allowing them to make decisions that help them develop these competencies and allowing others to guide, support, and steer them along the way, be that their teachers, be that their advisors, and really everybody at the institution or even their external mentors being able to be a part of this process where they develop through competency-based education.
So where we came along as far as how did we get here, we started with a tool suite. So there was a number of different assignments that had different focuses, whether it be working together as a group, self-reflection, self-assessment, interactive and collaborative learning through interactive documents or different materials. We had a few bad ones as well along the way, but our first goal was to make sure that there was different types of assessments and assignments that could make sure that students were engaged and working together in different functions. Then we came across something called what we call the tool suite, was kind of putting them all into a basket, but allowing those tools to interconnect. So creating specific learning journeys, creating different learning designs where they could chain together with the same rubrics or with different rubrics to make sure that that learning path was established to associate with different program outcomes or learning outcomes in a particular course or even a semester. And now we're really excited to get into a competency-based assessment system, which kind of pairs together all of the powers of the tools, the tool suite and learning journey, and then moving into, kind of gathering and aggregating all that data into a competency-based education. So why is this important? A lot of competency-based education vendors, I guess in the edtech space, but also in the corporate learning development space, appeared right after COVID or during COVID, when it was 100% the hot thing to talk about. We have the scars, I guess, from doing it wrong or doing it right along the way, along with a lot of the educators that are around us that have been trying to have this beacon of competency-based education for a long time. It doesn't happen overnight. It certainly is one that has been a trial path. Now, the tools themselves, there's 15, Cole.
Yeah, and so this is a look at the FeedbackFruits tool suite. So all these individual tools that make up this tool suite that we mentioned. And what our goal is here is to bring active learning into your asynchronous environment. So bringing these tools directly into your LMS. FeedbackFruits is not a separate platform. It works within whatever LMS platform that you're already using. And so of these 15 tools, they fall into these 3 distinct categories, where we have tools that are focused on facilitating different types of assessment. So streamlining, ensuring that there's quality peer reviews, but also getting students to give feedback to each other. This idea of group member evaluation, or even giving teachers ways to give more robust feedback to their students with our assignment review, or even evaluating students on their skills, using AI to give them feedback on their writing, and encouraging self-reflection opportunities throughout a course. But then we also have these tools that are focused on creating discussions and student engagement in the online environment. So where we have these interactive study materials, which is a way of social annotation, bringing discussion boards into where the students are in their materials while they're studying and preparing for their courses, and also ways to scaffold student note-taking and comprehension of different materials. But then we also want to bring this interactivity to the classroom. So where we have some tools that are focused on improving discussion boards, but also facilitating pedagogies that traditionally have only been able to be face-to-face, like team-based learning. And so across all these tools, there's a couple goals that we want to help institutions to achieve. We want to make sure that institutions are able to deliver continuous and holistic assessment throughout their course, moving away from this one final multiple choice exam that is the do-all end-all of your entire course. We want that to be holistic, but also multimodal, giving students chances of different ways to learn and different types of assessments that they'll go through in their courses. But as we're looking at competency-based education, these assessments should also be skill-based. And as we look at skill-based assessment, it's important that assessments stay formative as well as summative. So not just only assessing students at the moments when it's summative, giving them that chance to get feedback, improve before they go to those summative moments, and also creating this multi-layer feedback, feedback from different sources, self-reflection, peer feedback, mentor feedback, and also feedback from the teacher. And so this brings us to the way that our tools combine and can actually be really valuable in the way that you design your courses.
Yeah, so I think the key thing is, we've gone through the battle scars of creating these different tools. Then we've put them into a way that somebody can create them and chain them together into a learning journey that can be templated. So moving into, hey, I'd like to have a peer review followed by a group member evaluation, followed by a self-reflection. So connective tissue as far as different outcomes or different chained learning activities. But now we're really into a place where we want to make sure that educators can also import these learning journeys in with a single click into the LMS, because a lot of the times the old school CB is external to where the learning happens. And it's arduous for instructors to add another layer on top of their busy workload. So what we've tried to do, and we're still trying, but it's looking pretty good at this point, is making sure that those assignments and activities are easy to implement, but offer a basic path to creating a course structure, which can be applied to a CBE or what we call competency-based assessment quite easily within the course structure itself.
And so, as you might have noticed from that last slide where I was talking about the different types of assessment that we facilitate, what we want to bring is this idea of authentic assessment and giving faculty and institutions easier ways to implement this authentic assessment into their courses. Because if you would look at the types of assessment that are able to be facilitated by the LMS, it's a lot of multiple choice that we see going into CBE programs and also just simple types of assignments. And so here what you can see is what we call these learning journeys that Ian was just talking about, the way that these tools can be weaved into your course design to achieve different learning outcomes. And so what you'll find on our website is what we call our learning journey library. This is where we've taken these different course designs from our partner institutions and shared them with the world to see kind of how you can design these courses to achieve different learning outcomes. So you see each of these learning journeys has a different goal in mind. So creating self-assessment or having asynchronous discussions, boosting student engagement, giving multi-layer feedback on collaborative writing, or deepening understanding or skill development. So then once you go into this learning journey, you can see which tools are incorporated in this course and then why and how you would actually go about bringing these in. And then I'll show you in a bit in the LMS how you can already pull these templated learning journeys and implement them directly inside of Canvas. And so ultimately, that's our goal. We want to facilitate authentic assessment. But then we have these learning journeys. You can build these learning journeys to develop different competencies and skills that we know employers are looking for, that we know are the student learning outcomes that we want to achieve through students completing these different courses, kind of like you see here. But then the question becomes, how do we track all of this? How do we track their development over time and give students a good way to communicate that out as they go into the workforce to show these are the skills that I'm bringing to the table?
All right, so I think we're going to buckle up and we're going to get into the software. So the first part is, how the heck did we get here? So competency-based assessment is a great idea, but we certainly wouldn't have gotten there if we didn't have partners that collaborated and helped us co-develop. So throughout our history with something we call the do tank, it took me a while. That's a think tank, but you actually do things. So it's a clever way that our CEO kind of put together their co-development platform. We've been very, very thankful to be able to develop these with active educators with much more research backgrounds than anybody outside of our pedagogy department would have. So this kind of coupled together brought us towards our sponsoring institutions that helped us build competency-based assessment. So we've got one institution which came in with the same type of area as far as developing specific competencies and ways that they want to measure those within assignments. So they helped us build out a number of skills, and that's RSM. So they wanted to make sure that they had a good student portfolio that could bring those skills that were measured in the assignments out forward. So that brought forth the aspect of the programmatic assessment and student portfolio. But then in Holland, wanted to make sure that there was a way to combine rubrics and bring that into the tool to be 100% sure that this was replicable and scalable across the institution. So what we'd like to do now with the last 5 slides in the presentation is give a bit of a macro overview of what's going on in the tool before we go into a live demo. So let's get real. First, we're going to give you a couple screenshots, just a comprehensive institutional level, and then we'll show you the student and teacher experience. So if you have a cup of coffee, have a big sip. Now we're going to get deep. We'll get ready. Cole, you good?
Yep, I'm ready. And I think that's a good thing to preface as we go into showing this platform is that these institutions that you see here, they had this dedication to implementing CBE, and they saw that there wasn't really a good solution for the way that they wanted to do it. So by partnering with us, we built this tool with their idea of CBE in mind, and then have opened it up from all these different perspectives to make it this customizable platform that can be applied to many different versions, types, and thought schools of thought when it comes to CBE. But ultimately, what we've done is the way that you're able to track these competencies and how they develop over time is through the implementation of these competency rubrics. So these rubrics can be applied across any of those FeedbackFruits tools that you saw previously, where they are then mapped to these competencies which the institution has decided. Now, you can set up these competency rubrics at the institutional level as well as the departmental level. So they're there for faculty to grab and apply to any of the different assignments that they set up inside of their courses. And so faculty and learning designers and admins have this learning design space where you build out these rubrics. And so if we were to look at this competency of positive impact agent, you can build up different rubrics that aggregate towards this competency. So you can kind of have sub-points which are developing towards these larger competencies that we're looking to develop within students. So as you see, each of these—
Cole, I don't want to interrupt, but although I am interrupting, the interface that we're looking at right now, this is the FeedbackFruits interface, right? This isn't an LMS interface. Okay, I just wanted to level set that for my own brain. Thank you.
Yep. So this is the FeedbackFruits interface inside of the LMS. So I'll show it to you here. It's like an iframe. There's no separate platform, but it'll be integrated within whichever LMS that you use. Because here from this learning design space, these are the rubrics that ultimately get applied across all these different assessment tools. And then as students complete their assignments and progress through different courses, they're going to have their portfolio, where they're able to see these competencies that they're being assessed on, how they developed over time, and also each of the assignments which are aggregating towards the development of those competencies. So it's this very transparent experience and idea of the way that the students are able to see how they develop their competencies over time. Because here, this is a look at the portfolio inside of Canvas. I'm going to go really quick through the rest of these slides because what I'd prefer to do is show you this in the live environment and take a look at some of these real examples that we have set up. But ultimately here, where I can see I need to improve this competency, I'm doing well here, allowing students to track this as they go through. And then ultimately, what we want to do is create this transparency, having this singular space where all of these skills, competencies, and especially the feedback that students are receiving is in this one central place across their entire degree program. And then what do we want to make sure that students can do with this? We want to make sure that this is something that contributes to their lifelong learning and contributes to the value of their degree as they go out into the workforce. So it allows them to take this portfolio and add it to their job applications or export it and share it with external stakeholders. But then even more importantly, like I mentioned at the beginning, we want to put the student at the center of their learning. So this actually allows them to initiate and ask different people for their feedback, whether that be their teachers and their peers, but even external stakeholders who might be part of their education and development experience. Then ultimately also allowing them to set their own learning goals. So to say, hey, this is the skill that is most important to me and where I really want to develop, so that that is very clear to their teachers, to their advisors, these different aspects. And so that's where I want to leave it for now as we jump into Canvas and take a look at a couple of these different examples. So what I want to do is start by showing you the student perspective. And I'm going to start by showing you the student perspective as they progress through different types of assignments. So here, as you see, I am logged in as a student, and we're going to go through this peer review activity. So as I mentioned, FeedbackFruits, you see here, there's no separate platform, no separate logins. And as we go through each of these tools, even though they're different tools, you're going to notice that the student has this same user interface. So regardless of the type of assessment, we create this uniformity in the types of activities that the student goes through. I just open it up into this full screen mode so it looks a little better and that we don't have any distractions. But first, the student gets their instructions. They'll see their group. So all of this is synced with the LMS, the groups, the deadlines, the grades, and having it fully integrated. Then ultimately I will turn in my paper here, and then I'll need to go and give my peer review. So what we'll see here is all the different students that I've been assigned, where then I can go into their work and give my feedback. But what you'll notice is as I'm completing this peer review, I'll have the rubric directly alongside as I'm grading my peers' work. So it helps to set a lot of clear expectations about what we want to give feedback on and in which areas, making that really streamlined. I know myself when I was doing my master's and we would do peer reviews in Canvas, you have this tiny little box down in the bottom right-hand corner to give all your feedback to your peers. And so it led to not always the highest quality feedback being given in peer reviews. And so what you'll notice here is that we've tried to set this up in a way that we facilitate and guide this idea of giving quality feedback. So once I've annotated a piece of the text here, I can give my feedback where I can say this was bad. You see it's associated to the different criteria in the rubric, but then you'll also notice here this automated feedback coach. So this is where we're using AI in our products to actually guide students on how to give quality feedback to each other, letting me know that this feedback's not constructive. I need to be more specific about what was bad about the organization. So you see it's pulling from the actual rubric criteria here and guiding students on how to give feedback. Then ultimately I post that. And so this is the student process. The way we do this on documents, we can also do this on videos, because as we look at CBE and skill development, some of the best ways for students to demonstrate their skills is with a real demonstration, a role play, a scenario-based assignment. So where students can actually upload videos, audio content, role play scenarios, and then you still have this interface for students to give that quality feedback on these diverse types of deliverables. So then I can leave my feedback timestamped directly to a specific point in this video associated to the different rubric criteria, and post my feedback. So making it that as we switch to diverse types of deliverables, we're not sacrificing the quality of feedback that students receive. Then ultimately, as a student, then the next step, once I complete all my peer reviews, I'll actually have to go in and read the feedback that I've received. So teachers can set up a portion of the grade for the student to actually have to go in and read the feedback that they've gotten. And then lastly, we can ask the student to reflect on this activity. So across all FeedbackFruits tools, you can add this self-reflection at the end, and again, associate a portion of the grade for this just to get those completion rates up and have them participating in these different assignments. Then here I see my grade, which I'll also see in the Canvas gradebook. And just to give you one other small example is that here, this is what a self-assessment looks like. So we are really big on this idea of implementing self-assessment into course design, getting these reflection opportunities for students and encouraging them to self-regulate their learning. And so here, as we go through a self-assessment, you see it goes through this exact same flow as the peer review. Whereas I'm showing me that this assignment in particular is aggregating towards my development portfolio and contributing towards these leadership skills. And then here I'll need to go through this rubric flow, and then actually scale, give myself a rating, but then actually write feedback for these different criteria. So then getting this very structured process of students going through a self-reflection. Teachers can actually reply to these comments, so give their feedback on a student self-assessment, and then ultimately, again, having this reflection step, and it can be graded. Most of the time we see this as a formative, kind of completion-based type of activity. So these are the tools. Now, as we mentioned, the tools is just this way of facilitating different types of assessment. And when it comes to the portfolio, this is where we put the student at the center and allow them to track their competency development. So I just moved over because I've got it pulled up already with a nice, pretty account here. And this is the FeedbackFruits portfolio. So you see it's set up just as a course item here inside of Canvas, but you can also set it up at the global navigation level for students. And then here inside of this portfolio, I'm going to see all the different competencies which I'm being assessed on. So this will only show me the ones which are part of my course program and which are part of my attainment of that particular degree. Then I can drill down into each of these competencies to see the different rubrics which are aggregating towards it. So contribution towards teamwork, interaction with teammates. These are all different ways that I'm being assessed that are ultimately aggregating towards the development of my collaboration competency. So then underneath these competencies, I can see each of the different pieces of feedback that I've been given. But you see over here that I'm able to filter out these different areas. So then I can focus in on specific competencies that I want to develop, and then even where I'm getting this feedback from. So then I can focus only on my teacher feedback, or then I can focus only on my peer feedback. So allowing them to really easily track kind of where these ratings are coming from and how these competencies are being developed, but also how they're developed over time, which is really important as we look as a student's skill development across their entire degree program. So here you see each of the different blocks kind of over time for these different competencies, how they're developing. And so here I don't have a super populated environment, but here, as it would be a real student with multiple learning activities across different months, they'll get to see kind of this over time. It's because I have it for peers. If we change it, then it's going to look a bit better. Yeah, here we see a little bit more of where they're developing over time. And then ultimately, I can track all of the activities which are contributing towards this portfolio. And then I can share it externally, or I can even request feedback from other sources. So giving students some agency in the way that they are collecting this feedback. If they see that they're a bit light in one particular feedback area, gives them that chance to go out and request it from the people that are relevant. So that's a little bit about the student experience. Really quick overview, but I wanted to save just enough time for us to look at this from the teacher side. Because as we go to the teacher side, what we're going to see is now I just switched screens to a teacher account where they will have this same kind of portfolio and learning design space menu item here in their course. And what you'll notice is here, as I enter this kind of learning design, this institution space, I see all these different rubrics that are available to me to add to my different assignments. So here I see the collaboration, and then I can actually click in and see what this rubrics consist of. So I understand kind of what my options are and what the different templates are there. But then let's say I wanted to create a new learning activity, because as Billy was mentioning, time constraints and getting faculty on board can be one of the toughest things when it comes to rolling out a new CBE program. And so we try to lower those barriers as much as possible when it comes to creating these types of assignments. So FeedbackFruits, you're able to just select it and create a new assignment. And actually, I'm going to do from this server. And so here, what I'm going to see is that I can create a brand new learning activity from any of the FeedbackFruits tools. And I'll also see these learning journeys, but I can also select from these pre-configured assignment templates that I've either created or have been shared with me by my peers, or even from the central institutional level. But then I'll be able to select this pre-configured activity where it has the settings already built out. Then I'll be able to associate, it already has a rubric associated to it, but let's say I wanted to add a different rubric. I can go down and directly from this library, you see I can find all of these different rubrics, which are all that we saw in that last screen. So then here, if I'll go to the institutional templates, I've got this collaboration rubric where we can talk about interaction with teammates and then implement this rubric directly in this learning activity. Then I go ahead and save it. Then it's going to have this available for me down here at the bottom. And this is the assignment that we just created. So making it very, very simple to implement these robust and different types of assessment using these predefined competency rubrics. Now, besides for having these kind of pre-developed templates, what the teacher will also be able to do by using the FeedbackFruits tools is get really good insights into the student progress, but also engagement with these different activities. So this is the teacher view of that same peer review that we just saw, where then here I'm going to be able to go in and see all of the students in my class. Did they read the instructions? Have they submitted a paper? Did they give feedback? How much time did they spend in this assignment? How many comments did they leave? And did they even go and read their feedback? So it gives you a way to get that bird's eye view of, are students engaged with this assignment and how have they completed it? But then even better, what I'll be able to do is as I go down to where students are giving reviews, we have this keyword analysis. So rather than having to go into every single peer review and read all the comments that students have written, here we pick out some of the keywords that have been mentioned across multiple reviews. You can click on it and then see all of the comments that mention this keyword. So allowing you to, like I mentioned, just get this high-level overview rather than having to dive through and read every single review. But we do the same thing with the rubric itself. So this we call the heat map, where I can see all of the different students in my class aggregated into this view here, where I can track how they're performing on the different aspects of this rubric. So then it helps me to identify, well, where are my students doing really well? And where are some of the areas that we might want to focus on and help with that development later on? and get those insights. So just a couple ways that as a teacher, you get some more insights, and you can also see how students are progressing at each step of this particular assignment. Then lastly, what I'd like to show you is the portfolio from the teacher's perspective. So from the teacher, you're going to go again to this kind of portfolio menu item here, where I can see all the different students in my class, where then I'm going to be able to go in and see that individual student's portfolio. And you see I was on this page for a bit too long and timed it out, but then I'll go to my students. I can see the student portfolio. And then I'll be able to go into each student and actually see their skills being aggregated from across all their courses. So this is from their entire program, not just this one individual course. So it also gives the teacher some insights into what's important to that student, how they're developing, and what they might need to focus on in their individual class. And then if I see some of the feedback like this self-assessment as I'm going through as the teacher, I can give my feedback here and reply to and get more robust ways to interact with the students in my class. So that'll be sent, and then the student gets a notification that they got that feedback from their teacher. Because ultimately, what that brings us to is that what we try to do here with this platform is to lower the barriers to entry when it comes to implementing CBE. Very often it can be seen as this fully revolutionary practice where you have to throw out the old and start fresh and do a completely new program. But what we want to do is give a way for an institution to take those steps towards CBE one step at a time, rather than having to do it all at once and spend years developing one program. These tools can be implemented in a fully credit course. You can still have a grade associated to it. It doesn't have to, but it can. And then it allows students to track that competency development in any course, regardless of modality, regardless of credit hours, regardless of which department that it's in. With so many different tools and providing that flexibility to administrators and to teachers, giving them different ways to decide how they would like to assess their students.
So there's a couple of questions I think I'll speak to in the chat that would be helpful for the total population. It takes a while for institutions to be ready for CBE. So the tools can be used just in normal courses, as far as maybe including group work or interactivity with documents or different functionalities. They're implemented just as an external assignment that can be embedded in any of the LMSs as a stepwise way into CBE, starting with interactivity or collaborative or social learning aspects within the assignment itself. And then moving on. So we have many institutions that have jumped right into the deep end with CBE, where they've adopted all the tools and kind of go forward. And we also have a number of institutions that move forward, step by step in that type of scaffolded approach where you incrementally move forward. The other option was as far as options being turned off if the institution has concerns about other instructors seeing the aggregate skills, certainly. So all of these different dashboards are LTI 1.3. So basically they can be enabled at a role or user level exclusively from your administrator's wish and command. So they're certainly there. And there's also administrative panels that aggregate data upwards. So at an administrative level, at an institution level, those are certainly there for those access as well. Thanks so much for those questions. If you have additional questions in the chat, feel free to include. Now, as we close, the commitment and capacity for CBE innovation is different based on every institution. It's not only faculty support. That's why we're so proud to really give you some proof on maybe some of the ways you can do it, some of the ways, and every institution is different as far as how you're going to either adopt different strategic areas within your institution. If we were talking with a UK institution like Layla from our initial, they're mostly looking at engagement and ways that they increase their national student survey results or their student voice results. If we're speaking with someone from College Buys, it's definitely called CBE or direct assessment in one vein as far as moving forward. We work with Utah, and they're very much into something that Billy mentioned as far as a repeatable and sustainable interaction where it's collaboration and engagement tools. Every institution, but also every region has a different area for assessment and ambition for improving it. We're certainly trying to have at least something that works in all of those different strategic values, but also with the incremental approach. So at that point, here's some additional materials. We'll put those in the link in the chat for some links. If you have any additional questions, it's been a great opportunity to kind of have this moment to kind of share with you some of our vision and also some of our battle scars, as I mentioned before, on the path towards CBA, as we call it, and as CBA, as the industry calls it. Thank you so much for your time, and really appreciate all the questions and engagement along the way.
And we did have a question on the Padlet, and then I'll ask them from the other presenters. But someone asked if the software was available to be purchased by an individual if their institution has not quite bought into it yet.
Yep, great. So we have an educators initiative, which allows up to 3 instructors to use the tool for life. Now, the goal there, it originally started with a bit of a humanitarian angle where we could help out, different third world countries and different things like that. But then we also realized that was a really good way to help some of the agents of change in North America as well. So that's certainly an option if you're an instructor, if you'd like to do so. I think the tab on our website is called Educators Initiative. You can find it at feedbackfruits.com.
Thanks, Cole. Okay, so we do have some questions across the board for the other presenters, but we only have 10 minutes left. So are there any questions from people live that you want to unmute and ask? If not, I can just pull one for each of you from the Padlet. Nope. All right. So Leah, I have one for you. Let me find it. I can't find it, but it was basically, what is the role of the oh, here you go. What role do educators play in ensuring that AI tools are used ethically and responsibly? Like, what onus falls on instructors to discuss with their students the ethical implementation and use of AI?
Yeah, so I think the challenge is that you have AI systems that are designed for education, like FeedbackFruits, and then you also have these more publicly available AI systems that students are engaging with. So the ethical dimensions are going to differ depending on kind of the use of the AI and the way it's been designed. I wouldn't say that all the responsibility is on educators, but I would say that educators have a really unique position to help students think ethically about these tools that they're engaging with on a day-to-day basis. And that doesn't have to look very different from the way that educators are already teaching students to think critically about the world around them. Like, I was an English major when I was an undergrad, and that helped me create a critical framework for evaluating technology. And so I think just even attaching that critical, analytical, and thoughtful engagement process, not just to literature or to theory, but to the world around them is a role that educators can play.
Great. Thank you very much. I know that's a loaded question to ask, so I appreciate you being willing to be put on the spot. I know I have that conversation frequently on our own campus. All right, Billy, are you ready to be put on the hot seat? So one of the questions is, I know that the California community colleges are in the pilot program right now. What is being put in place so that the lessons learned from this early pilot program will enact change for the next iteration of CBE in California community colleges and beyond, but selfishly for the California community college system?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I would say predominantly it's going to be that user manual we're developing, which should be able to leverage each part of the phases of implementation that we've gone over today. So that's the element that's kind of inclusive of all the different groups that are working on this project, from the colleges to the RAND research group, to the Volta Learning group, to CBIN, and then and Jobs for the Future, and then besides the Chancellor's Office, it's really kind of being driven by the Success Center at the Foundation for California Community Colleges. And this is a very robust piece of literature, I'll put it that way. So we have really the outline of it right now, and we're having different members input different information as needed. But hopefully that is going to be something that is really going to be able to be leveraged for future iterations of implementing, particularly degrees for direct assessment CBE.
Perfect, thanks. And did I understand the handbook isn't quite out, but is being developed as you go through this pilot program?
Yes, it's very, very early stages. So probably a few years before it's
Okay, great. All right, Ian and Cole. And this might be just selfishly a question from me, but I know that a lot of us also have CTE programs or even beyond. So I shouldn't contextualize CBE and CTE context, but what is the mechanism that these feedback and the competencies that are, I'm searching for the right word, that are mastered, isn't it? But you know what I'm saying, can be shared out with employers. Is there a mechanism within FirstFruits, or what do you see as best practice using your software to make sure employers can see these are the skills students have aggregated across their courses and are able to demonstrate?
Yeah, so I mean, there's the ability to export at a student level. There's also APIs that you can hook into different student portfolio mechanisms for moving that data out of the system into a student area. One of the projects that we have with an institution in the Netherlands is a lifelong learning project where the student portfolios automatically map and port into their lifelong learning portal for a re-entry to looking at those different papers and different things that were very memorable, I guess the best way to say it, or areas where maybe if you're doing your first slide presentation at a corporation, you want to steal that deck or that fantastic paragraph that you used in your master's program. So short answer, it's 100% possible with the existing platform.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you all being very cognizant of time. I know it's hard to only have 10 minutes left and get thrown in the hot seat with some questions. So, Enrique, if you want to send us off.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Jan and Cole. Appreciate it. Wonderful presentations. This concludes our Friday talks for today. Keep in mind that we have everything recorded on the coach's website. And also, as you receive our emails, they're right in the bottom too. And so thank you very much. Amanda, thank you for your wonderful contribution. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Appreciate the time, everybody. It was great to speak with you.